Council, get my mic on here. Council, I'm open to a motion on order of agenda.
I move to approve the order of agenda.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Moved and seconded, we approve order of agenda. Thank you much. There are copies on the counter at the side of the room, should anybody wish to have one. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 4-0, which brings us to citizen input and community announcements, which is an opportunity for visitors to address council on things not on the agenda. Also a time to address things that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearings. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during this portion, either before the meeting ends tonight or as soon as we can thereafter. I do not have any speaker cards. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak at this point? Seeing none, I will move straight along to mayor's business, where I usually report what's been happening as well as what's upcoming. The Metro Transportation 2020 Funding Task Force continues to meet and is getting very close to hopefully being able to solidify recommendations to Metro Council in this month, December. Clackamas County had been feeling kind of behind the eight ball, I guess I would say, through the last couple of months, but they succeeded in securing a spot this past month to make a fairly robust presentation, primarily around the Clackamas County's Sunrise Corridor, which is Highway 212 that goes out toward the east. That presentation and discussion seemed to change the dynamic of comments I was hearing on the T2020 group, and much more open to the idea that this really could be a significant addition to our transportation network, not as some people have been describing it, just another freeway. It is in fact a surface arterial plan to be a full multi-use kind of a street where there would be plans that what might be dedicated bus lanes in the future, but not right away, providing a lot more intersection improvements. There are several mobile home parks and some low-income areas out along that highway that essentially have no way to even get back and forth across the existing 212. So lots of discussion about what the plans are and how those improvements would be made. So that was well received. JPAC is working on a couple of things. The JPAC committee is working on approval of a work plan within which to redefine how we analyze whether our performance is meeting our standards for different types of transportation. So now at this point we use A, B, C, D, E, F kind of analysis, and those many of the roads and intersections throughout the region are failing to meet those standards, and there is this increasingly strong sense among many groups that those standards do not adequately account for alternative modes of transportation and public transit in the extent to which those alternatives are utilized and assist in overall mobility. So the push is to try to come up with some definitions and a structure for how we look at the capacities of our different transportation systems. So the work plan is a process with a group to try to work through and come up with those proposals on how to do things somewhat differently. It'll be interesting to see what comes forward out of that. Also at this last JPAC meeting, one of the Metro councilors expressed some strong reservations about the I-5 Wilsonville Boones facility plan, where we have worked with ODOT to define an idea for an additional lane southbound across the Willamette River to ease up the bottleneck that seems to be causing all kinds of problems. Again, this concern arises out of the idea about whether we are building more freeway capacity to, as they say, build our way out of congestion, which can be pretty strongly argued never happens because you always get more users. But I had the opportunity and spoke quite a bit, I guess, about why this plan was not a freeway capacity plan, but a plan to allow more efficient utilization of what already exists and to enable access to our existing community in Charbonneau, primarily south of the river, as it exists, not a plan to facilitate growth of the Aurora Airport, specifically reduction in farmland or any of those kinds of things that are being expressed as concerns. So I thought that it was an opportunity to try to put the idea of the facility plan in context, and I thought I was at least reasonably successful in doing so, but we'll see how things go forward. Anyway, upcoming, I have 10 interviews to conduct in the next couple of weeks of volunteer applications for our boards and commissions, and I always look forward to that. As intensive as it is, it's fun to talk to a lot of people. Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting upcoming is looking at the county's regional housing needs analysis and what strategies need to be in place for the county. Also discussion of what the 2020 short legislative session at the state level will be and what county priorities need to be as relates to that. The Metropolitan Mayors Consortium is also talking about the upcoming legislative session and what the mayor's priorities are going to be with regards to that short session. Greater Portland, Inc. We have our monthly meeting with the Small Cities Consortium there, where I am the Small Cities Consortium's representative to the GPI Board of Directors. And they've asked me if I would continue in that, and I've said I could, recognizing that I sometimes have meeting conflicts, and as long as they're comfortable with that, I'd be willing to do so. So we'll see if that's the decision or not. And the T2020 task force, as I mentioned earlier, is looking at making a recommendation to Metro Council on what specific projects to include in a proposed bonding measure to go to the public in November of 2020. So lots of things going on. I would ask the council to give us their notes on what they are doing or what priorities they see, starting with Councilor President Ackerball, please.
Yeah, the last little while here, I've had the opportunity to spend time with family and enjoy a holiday, as I hope that many of you all did as well. Enjoying the family even into this evening. I think with our visitor here. I wanted to mention, I think our last meeting, I called attention to the toy drive that we have at the Parks and Rec building. And that's still going on, I believe, until December 13th. So you can drop off an unwrapped toy to the Parks and Rec building. But also the Boones Ferry Messenger had a great article in this last month, just kind of in different ways that you can support in the community and give in the community. And so I thought that was worth calling out as well, because that was a great article to keep in mind as we're all, trying to bring cheer to the people around us as well in these next couple weeks. So thank you for that, and hope everyone enjoys a good couple holiday weeks here through the end of the year.
Thank you. Councilor West.
Had a great holiday. And before I forget, I want to wish everybody in Wilsonville happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. I will not be here at the next meeting because I will be spending time with my family for the Christmas season in Disneyland. After my trip to Peru, doing a medical outreach that I'm going to be doing So from the jungles of Peru to Disneyland is my December plans, but I'll miss all of you and wish all of you guys a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. I had the pleasure of attending a Universal Health Systems open house with other elected officials, mental health community leaders. And it was hosted at the facilities for Cedar Hills Hospital, which is part of the UHS system. Brian attended with me to kind of get a feel for what's going on and to hear from the leaders of that organization. Sheila Hamilton was there, media personality and mental health advocate. And I think it was overall an informative and productive meeting. And it was a pleasure to be there. So hopefully we will see that hospital built here in Wilsonville and provide great access to mental health services to the metro area and improve patient and healthcare outcomes across the region and begin to move Oregon towards a better path towards providing appropriate and good care to its citizens. And that was a pleasure to be a part of. And then, yeah, Thanksgiving was great. A lot of football. I am not the cook, but I was the eater. We had 20 people at our house. Family came in from out of town, hung out with the neighbors, got caught up on a couple TV series, and had a great time. So that's what we did. And once again, everybody have a great holiday season and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Councilor Linville.
Thank you. I had the opportunity on the 23rd of November to represent the city at the annual 4-H member awards ceremony. And there were representatives there from the city of Tualatin and I believe from Lake Oswego, city councilors. No other officials, although there were a number of them in our local area that sent their best wishes to the young people who were receiving awards. I had the opportunity to visit with 3 young women who keep their horses here in Wilsonville and are actually had received several awards that evening. So it was kind of fun to just connect with them, and the room was full of young people running around from toddler age up to grandparents. So it was a fun evening. That was held at the Clackamas County Fairgrounds. In the next prior to our next meeting, here are kind of the things that I wanted to remind folks that there is the Wilsonville tree lighting ceremony that will happen on Wednesday evening at 5:30, just outside at the Korean War Memorial Park, outside of the Parks and Rec office. And that'll be a great time. I think there will be I think I heard hot chocolate and some other things there as well. My guess is Santa will be there as well. So that's a fun event. I also wanted to mention that on December the 11th, I will be attending the Willamette Falls Locks Commission. I received my official appointment from the governor on the Willamette Falls Locks Commission, and they're moving forward with some legislation in the short session, hopefully with the goal of getting the locks back open again. They haven't been open since 2011, and so that would be really a good thing. Then Thursday, December the 12th, I am going to attend the West Side Economic Alliance Forum at Washington Square. And then also the Clackamas County Business Alliance annual meeting on the 11th, actually I have 3 meetings on the 11th, starting with the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting and the breakfast in the morning, and then the Locks Commission meeting in the afternoon, and the Clackamas County Business Alliance meeting in the evening. So I'll be having my city council hat on that day, for sure. And I did want to mention the Wilsonville Metro Community Enhancement Program is seeking applications for community enhancement projects. And this is an opportunity for groups in our community to get funding for projects that can rehabilitate and enhance areas within the Wilsonville city limits. There's about $30,000 in this fund, and it's underutilized, frankly, by citizen groups for projects within the city. So there's going to be an informational session on December the 19th at the Wilsonville Library. The nomination form is available online. And the deadline for submission is January the 31st. Projects don't have to start, or cannot start until after July 1, 2020. So groups have some time to get their projects pulled together. So we really encourage some community groups to put in an application and take advantage of that funding. And that is all I have.
All right, thank you so much. Lots of stuff going on, and we're kind of getting geared up. I'm sure the spring is going to be exceptionally busy. That will bring us to our consent agenda items. If we could ask for that to be read, please.
Resolution number 27.
Is your mic on?
73.
Right, thank
Can
you.
you hear me okay? A resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement contract with OBEC Consulting Engineers for Phase 1 preliminary engineering services for the I-5 pedestrian bridge project. Resolution number 2774, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Wallace Engineering PLLC for design and construction engineering services for the 2020 street maintenance project.
Thank you. Council, is there a motion on consent?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second that we approve the consent agenda. Consent items are not discussed unless they are removed from the consent agenda motion. So at this point, we have two items. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Bring us to our public hearing, ordinance 839.
Ordinance number 839, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville repealing and replacing Wilsonville Code Chapter 9 structures and declaring an emergency.
Let's see, I'm going to have some formal reading here to do on the statute. So I will call to order Wilsonville City Council public hearing on ordinance number 839 as has been read. Ladies and gentlemen, council will take public testimony tonight in a public hearing format conducted as follows. First, city staff will present their report. Then we will ask by testimony by proponents, opponents, and those who neither favor nor oppose the proposed ordinance. If you wish to testify, please do complete a speaker card from the counter at the side of the room. Pass it forward to the city recorder. When called, come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and make your statement. I do request those providing testimony not repeat testimony already given. Simply indicating your agreement with certain prior testimony is entirely sufficient. Ms. Guile-Hinman.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp and Council. I am Amanda Guile-Hinman, Assistant City Attorney for the City of Wilsonville. Tonight, Council is considering adopting ordinance number 839 on first reading to repeal and replace Chapter 9 structures of the Wilsonville Code. The current Chapter 9 has several provisions in it. It first adopts state building code, certain state building codes, and also a fire code that's under another state statute. It also lists permit fees for building permits, though there's some duplication in those permit fees that are currently listed in the Chapter 9. Third, it contains a violations provision when a party is violating the building code. It currently lists that as a Chapter A misdemeanor with a fine of not less than $10 and not more than $50, or by imprisonment of not more than 30 days, or both a fine and imprisonment. The building, or Chapter 9 currently does not address the authority or obligations of the building official, permits or inspections, or appeals of fines or other technical matters, among other items not currently provided. What led to staff looking at revising Chapter 9 in addition to the items that are currently not contained within it is that the state has made changes to its building codes, particularly with regard to the Oregon Structural Specialty Code. State building codes are generally on a 3 to 5 year cycle for revisions, but they can be changed at any time. With the specific state building codes adopted in the city's code, the process for keeping up with these changes is cumbersome. Additionally, when significant changes occurred, as has happened with the Structural Specialty Code, it leaves the city somewhat flat-footed to address them. Moreover, as the state seems to be shifting to allow for more local control of the administration of state codes, and as new issues arise, the city needs to have the nimbleness and flexibility to adapt to those changes and issues. Finally, House Bill 2001 amended ORS 455610 to require a local appeals board to hear appeals concerning the building official denials of conversions of single-family dwellings as part of the larger state effort to allow for more missing middle housing. Appeals to local boards of appeals regarding alternate methods, materials, and design are common practice in local jurisdictions, but are not currently housed within the Wilsonville Code. So what the new Chapter 9 does is we started out, the building official, Dan Carlson, while the building official at Corvallis, overhauled Corvallis's building code. So we started with that code as our baseline. We then reviewed it to make it current with today's standards and also compared it to other local jurisdictions surrounding Wilsonville to ensure that we are being consistent with the other jurisdictions' current practice. One provision that we've added is to adopt state building codes by a resolution to allow for the nimbleness that when the state adopts revised building codes, and also to give the city flexibility when new issues inevitably arise. The new Chapter 9 will also create a local appeals board that can hear appeals concerning technical matters, so the city will comply with House Bill 2001. Moreover, the new Chapter 9 will expressly allow for certain authority for the building officials, such as right of entry and stop work orders on building permits, abatement of use of hazardous equipment, and declaring buildings unsafe, among other duties and authorities of the building official. The new Chapter 9 will expressly regulate the approval of permits, modifying permits, and inspections. Currently, as I noted, the Building Code Chapter 9, any violations are treated as a Class A misdemeanor. The new Chapter 9 will treat it as a civil penalty rather than a criminal charge and will allow a sliding scale for that civil penalty while promoting voluntary correction by the violating party. And as I mentioned in the work session, I have distributed to council a red line of the proposed Chapter 9 to clarify minor issues identified with the current draft of Chapter 9. Which is provided in the list that council currently sees. Should council find these red lines helpful for clarifying the proposed Chapter 9, staff will include these changes in the second reading of ordinance number 839, and I recommend that council leave the record open for further public comment at the second reading. So the next steps is tonight we are having a public hearing on ordinance number 839. We will do a second reading, assuming approval tonight, we'll do a second reading on December 16th. At that same meeting, staff will also bring forward resolutions to adopt the current state building codes and also the local fees that we currently charge for building permits. Those fees won't change, we'll just be putting them in a resolution. Staff will also be setting the effective date for the ordinance and resolutions for January 1, 2020 to be consistent with the most recently adopted state building codes. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, just for clarification for the public that may not have been listening to our work session, the redlined and slight modifications that you've distributed tonight have not had public airings, so the staff is recommending that we consider those modifications at the time of a second reading, not try to work through those on such short notice tonight when the public has not had a chance to comment. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. Council, questions for Ms. Guile Hinman? Anything at all? I know that you've put a lot of work into this in the last couple of weeks especially, which we all appreciate, and it appears to me that we're on a good track for trying to respond to the situation and the changes that have occurred beyond our control, with changes that do occur that we can make within our control. And I just know from my experience that we frequently work with incomplete information, and we need to do the best we can with what we've got. Doesn't mean that we won't learn more in the future and probably have to make some adjustments at some point coming down the road. So I just want that to be kind of the understanding or expectation to council here as we go forward, however we choose to do so. Are there any, we don't really have a motion on the ordinance on the table yet. We're going to have our public hearing. So at this point, questions to staff or clarifications are really what's appropriate. And after we ask for public testimony, we will ask for a motion and then have a chance for discussion if the council chooses to do so. Okay, I have not received any speaker cards. Is there any member of the public that would like to speak at this point? Not a big crowd tonight. We have a recommendation from council, or from our legal counsel to leave the record open for the second reading because of the situation that we are in. I don't see any problem with doing that. The possibility always exists that someone will become aware of the discussion between now and a subsequent meeting and want to have some input, especially since we have some wording that has not been previously published before today. So I think that's an appropriate process to follow, if it pleases the council. So I will not close the public hearing, but if there's no one speaking tonight, do we need a motion in order to continue, or do we just an announcement that we're going to leave it open?
I think you've covered it well.
Okay. So that being the case, I'll put it to council that we are setting the public hearing aside for now, but we have the opportunity to take an action on first reading. So what is the pleasure of council with regard to ordinance number 839 presented to us for a first reading?
Your Honor, I move to approve ordinance number 839 on first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded that we approve 839 on first reading.
Your Honor?
Yes.
The other thing I would do is I would maybe also clarify the motion to approve it on first reading, but keeping the record open for council to consider the suggested revisions to the ordinance by staff and to allow the public time to review and comment at the next hearing.
That's your motion.
Would the maker of the motion incorporate that language?
Absolutely.
All right, and the second?
Yes.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. At this point then, we have a motion and a second. It's the appropriate time for council to discuss amongst ourselves if you have observations or perspectives you'd like to present or questions to ask at this point. Councilor Linville.
Well, I've had the opportunity to look at the current Chapter 9, and I would say overwhelmingly this is a better document. It provides direction, I think, for the citizens as well as contractors in the permitting process. It allows for a very robust appeal process, both for decisions on any fines that might be levied or violations and also denials of, or non-approvals of permits. So I think it's I commend staff for the work that they've done on improving this chapter.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Akkervall?
I just wanted to echo that, I guess, message of thanks to staff in their response to this challenge. And, as we're looking at how will other cities respond to, the landscape that we have now and what we're choosing to do, I feel very, very comfortable and have a lot of trust in the staff's recommendations here. And I think we could only respond in this way with the experts that we have on staff and with the knowledge that they bring and the dedication that they bring to their jobs. And this is just a moment that really highlights that. So a big thank you.
Councilor West?
Just from the extensive conversations we've had the last couple council meetings, I think that it's clear that the council as a whole shares a lot of the same concerns moving forward with this, and there was very little daylight between any of us, and there was a lot of unity on this issue while dealing with concerns and issues that we never asked to have to deal with. And we were put in a predicament, and thank you to the staff for being nimble and responsive and helping us to make an educated, well-informed decision for the citizens of Wilsonville. Yeah, I think that we can have a little bit more work to do here, but this is a start in the right direction with what very little time we've had to respond.
I concur with everything I've heard from council here with regard to this ordinance. I also want people to be aware that I did meet I lost track of how long, a couple hours, I guess, with Assistant City Attorney Kyle Hinman and our building official, Mr. Carlson. And we had a robust discussion about paragraph by paragraph concerns that might be there, discussing whether the language conveyed the nuance of what we expect from process to preserve the options of the private applicant that is proposing to do something, as well as preserving the authority of the building official and having the authority to protect the public health and safety in the way that position calls for. So I felt very good coming out of that. The net result of that discussion was the red line copy that you now have in front of you, which is not part of tonight's motion as currently made, but we have the option of considering next time, and I am going to encourage council strongly, from my point of view, that red line revised version of the attachment is the one that we ultimately should be moving toward. There are some details in the attachment to tonight's ordinance that I strongly prefer be massaged a little bit, and that's what that red line version does. You're welcome anytime between now and the next meeting to ask any questions of staff about any of those changes and the rationale. I would be available to you also if you have questions of me about those items. But I think that it's appropriate that we do move forward. I understand some of our neighboring jurisdictions are not trying to do very much given the short time frame and feeling like they have the inability to really work through the details in that time frame. I think our staff has done a really good job of utilizing their skills and our resources here, and that we have moved toward, defining those pieces and positioning the city where it's going to want to be, even knowing that we probably will ultimately have a few adjustments to make somewhere down the road. So I do think we're on the right path as near as I can see. So Yeah, we have a motion and a second with regard to 839 at this point. And is there any other discussion that council would like to have? Anything to clarify? If that's the case, I'm going to call for the vote on the motion to approve ordinance number 839 on first reading, which consists of the printed motion and the attachments as they currently exist. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, passes 4-0 on first reading. And so staff, then direction is that they will bring the revised wording forward to us with second reading and any additional input, and we'll have public hearing opportunity at the second reading on the 16th, and if the public would like to comment, correct?
Correct. Yes, and we'll make sure that the revised language is published too. So-
Excellent.
And available to the public.
Excellent, that's what we need. Okay, that's our only formal scheduled business for tonight. City Manager, anything additional? from
Just
you?
one item that may be of interest to council. I did sign the contract for paving repairs on Day Road. As you know, the mayor probably knows because he gets a lot of emails that he forwards to me about concern regarding potholes. So we're hoping to get that done in the next 7 to 10 days. We do need temperatures that are cooperating. I guess the industry standard is 40 degrees and rising. And I just looked at the weather forecast and it looks like we might get there. So we can maybe get those repairs done in the next week or two.
All right, good. Good.
That's all I have.
Okay, any legal business?
Just one follow-up to a question raised by Councilor West at the last meeting. He asked about the status of the CCNRs on the town center property that we recently purchased, and it's actually the CCNRs for all of town center. And it's a good night to talk about it because you did tonight on the consent agenda pass the contract for the design of that overcrossing. The status is it's been turned over to our economic development manager, and he has been working with some of the property owners to see about maybe just getting rid of all of the CCNRs for town center and either not having CCNRs or starting over with something new. But that's an ongoing process. So those CCNRs still apply to our property.
Thank you.
That was it.
That's it? All right. Council, anything further you'd like tonight? Seeing none, I will call us adjourned at 8:13. Thank you very much.